if you're a Big 12 fan, I can tell you, I know your worst Big 12 take, and I'm going to set you straight on why you should change that. Okay. That's what I'm here to do today. Big 12 fans, I know your worst take. It's a bad one. Let's change it. Okay. So I mentioned just a second ago, I do my survey at Big 12 Media Days, anonymous player survey. This year I talked to 30 players. Not all of them answered everything. Some of them declined to answer some of these questions, one of which is the one I'm about to talk to you about. Seemed to be the most sensitive for players. And that question was, which Big 12 coach would you most like to play for that isn't your own? I think there are some that, even though they're granted anonymity, they just don't even want to go there. They don't want to think about it. That's not, and I get it in a day and age where, I mean, one, you're having to just trust the guy who's saying that this is anonymous. And two, the transfer portal is such a thing that permeates every aspect of the sport. I can see why you'd want to just be like, dude, I don't even want to mess with that. Let's just not go there. But I did get about 20 to answer. And the coach that Big 12 players said they would most like to play for outside of their own. Anybody have any guesses? Chad, have any guesses? That coach was Deion Sanders, Coach Prime. He got 6 votes. Nobody else had more than 2. The only other coaches to get multiple votes were Dave Aranda and Kyle Whittingham. They each got a couple. But Deion won with 6 votes. It was triple any other coach. And it's interesting to me that that was the result based on what I saw last year. Okay, in a vacuum, obviously, yeah, he's a big star. He's a guy that soaks up a ton of attention. He's on TV everywhere. You can see why kids would be like, oh, yeah, like that's pretty cool. But last year, I asked players 2 things. One, I asked them, which Big 12 coach would you want to play for other than your own, without mentioning anybody specifically in the question? Gus Malzahn won. No more Gus Malzahn here in the league, but he had 5 votes. Now, admittedly, a lot of that, I think, was just players wanting to be back home in Florida. I think that's part of why that skewed that way. But Deion didn't even come up when I just asked players like, hey, who do you want to go play for? Last year, not a single player said Deion. When I asked the direct question last year, would you like to play for Coach Prime? Because that was such a hot topic issue at the time. I did directly ask one of the questions of that. 7 said no, 4 said not sure, only 4 said yes. Okay, so there was not a lot of Deion love last year, either when I'm just asking, who do you want to go play for, or specifically, do you want to play for him? Here's some of the quotes I got last year. Somebody said, nah, I wouldn't. He brings too much attention to the non-football stuff, and I want to just get straight to business. Someone else said, nope, I'm good on that. I've heard what it's like over there. I'm good on that. Another quote I got was, no, absolutely not. No offense, but no. So there were some pretty strong, definitive no's in there. Okay. So what changed? I think there are a couple things that help here. I think, one, being able to see tangible results. This was not a team that didn't even make a bowl game, right? From 2 seasons ago. This was a team that won 9 games and they were in the conference title race. And many Big 12 players got a chance to see Colorado up close and in person. And so it's, hey, like I see more of a proof of concept. It's happening in my conference. It's happening perhaps against me. So I now know that there's more to this than just flash. There's some substance there. They proved some substance. And regardless of what you think about Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders and how they obtained those players, they obtained the players. And there was more happening than just that. The defense got better. The offensive line got better. They did some things that looked like actual program building last year. So being able to see that as a player, that probably makes you be like, okay, well, I like some of the flash, but now I know that there's substance to back that up too. Also, I would just say not as polarizing this year as he was last year and the year before. The further we get away from the complete novelty of it, the less it's like a first take sort of talking point. I'm not saying he doesn't still make first take. You're still going to see that there's some, but it's not quite the same way that it was, not as fierce as it was. And that probably means that you're going to get players who would just say, based off of like seeing all the hype and craziness and stuff, they just be like, I don't want to mess with that. There's a little bit less of that now. So it makes you think about it a little bit more. But also, I just think having him in the conference, to be around him and see what he's actually all about really helps here. And that's a part of the point that I want to make. Because I think Deion gets a lot of really blind hate based on who people think he is. Now, I don't think he is perfect. I will name you a thing or two here in the rest of this segment that I think are things that I don't love. But in general, I think he's a pretty good dude, and he's a better dude than what the general reputation is of your average Joe Casual college football fan. Now, there are also a lot of Joe Casual college football fans who love him just because he is Deion. But I think Big 12 fans specifically, let's zero in on that, because I feel like nationally he's very popular. I feel like in the Big 12 he is not very popular. And I think people think he is way too cocky, has a bad attitude. His players have bad attitudes. It's cotton candy. It's all just flash, glitz, and glamour. It's not actually any substance. And I think a lot of that is pretty damn unfair. And I was thinking about this a lot as I was listening to, within the last week, his press conference about his bladder cancer. I think everybody knows that now, but it's been revealed that he not only has the foot issues that he's been dealing with, but he had bladder cancer and had to get his bladder removed. And there are a lot of things. It sounds awful, everything he's having to deal with that. But just listening to the way listening and then looking back and taking apart how he handled all this whole situation, I think deserves analyzing it and giving him some credit, and how it kind of bucks the trend of what people think of him is. Okay. So for one, I thought it was very thoughtful of him and enjoyed the fact that he made it a teachable moment about, hey guys, like, go get checked. I know men, and he said particularly black men, don't really want to go to the doctor all that often, but go to the doctor and get your routine checkup so that stuff like this won't happen to you. I like him using his platform for good as far as that goes. And I know I can just hear people saying, well, yeah, he wants attention. This me thing. Has a big press conference with the doctors and all that to announce what he had here. But that is completely unfair, because he was at Big 12 Media Days. There had been all these rumors about his health. He gets asked about it, and he just shrugged it off, didn't want to talk about it at all. Never would there be more media coverage than Big 12 Media Days. A lot of the national folks are there. Pete Thamel, Ross Dellinger, all the national outlets are there. Literally the entire media sphere of the conference is there, and he punted on talking about it. He also didn't even tell his two sons, two of the three sons, but the two that are playing in the NFL right now, he didn't tell Shiloh or Shador about what was going on because he didn't want to bother them when they're fighting for their lives trying to make a roster. I think that's pretty commendable and the type of thing that people wouldn't really give him a lot of respect or credit for. And I think this kind of whenever I listen to his press conferences, okay, there are two thoughts, and this is where I'll point out something that I don't love. Thought number one is when you do cut off reporters, columnists who are critical of you and you don't like, that's not a great thing. And it creates an environment where a lot of the press conference questions are very much softballs. And yeah, he's cultivated that media environment. But a lot of what he says and a lot of how he acts, he is right. When I hear him say a lot, he will say, I'm not trying to bring anybody down. I don't go out there throwing hate around. A lot of what comes back to me, I'm about good vibes. I want to lift people up. And if you hear him talk about Big 12 coaches, this is a guy that just waltzed into the conference one day. He didn't have to be friendly to a lot of these coaches. If he is who I think people vilify him out to be, why would he be deferential and complimentary of Big 12 coaches? He is every single time I hear him talk about them. He's best friends with Joey McGuire. He's pretty respectful. He does not try to bring people down. I think his confidence and swagger definitely turns people off, and people are not really used to it. You're just not used to people being that upfront about how confident they are in their abilities. And he certainly has that. And a lot of that's been earned over the course of his life. But I also think he's pretty thoughtful. I think he's generally a good dude, and he doesn't waste a lot of time trying to tear other people down. And I think he gets vilified way too much. And I think most of it comes from within the Big 12. Yeah, some of it's going to come nationally, but I think there's more national love for Deion for sure than there is in the Big 12. I mean, I can tell even just how the views go when I do content on Colorado or Deion. The views don't really come. I don't get views from this channel, but nationally, if somebody nationally puts out a view, it happens because there's more of a national infatuation and love for him. People in the Big 12 don't seem to like him. I think, as Matthew says, he does undoubtedly help the Big 12, which I haven't even mentioned here, how much he completely drives up the TV numbers and is a very helpful entity to the conference. I don't think he's a bad dude, which people seem to think he's a bad dude. You can disagree with some of how he's operated. If you don't like him cutting off journalists, if you don't like the comments directly to players, like about, Louis luggage and you guys can hit the road if you want, you don't have to agree with everything about his style, but I don't think he's a bad dude at all. And I couldn't help but really reflect on that. I also, one last thing on this, I think the Deion fans, they do Deion a disservice in his likability, because the fans, that's really what you guys hate. Like, it was a bunch of fans who came. I hated that. A bunch of casual fans who came thundering in, like not having any idea or respect about the Big 12 or college football and how it generally works, and expecting after that TCU win 2 years ago, like they're going to win the national championship, and not understanding, like, no, hey, like that's not how program building works, guys. Like, you can't, yes, that was very annoying. Still is, but don't hold that against Deion. Don't hold that against Deion. I wouldn't anyway. So there's my plea to you.